Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here at WAM, John Sneisen. And so we know that Canada loves to spend, we know that the government loves dependency, we know that the banking system is fraudulent, we know that everything is out of desperation at this point. I want to go into this article out of CTV News that says, Fed's focus on boosting competitiveness, deficit rising to $19.6 billion in 2019 to 20. And as the article goes into, the federal government is going to go deeper into deficit in the coming years as it tries to encourage Canadian businesses to innovate. While the economy continues to grow, a changed economic landscape in the United States and new policy measures that the governing Liberals are undertaking are pushing Canada further into the red. In the 2019-20 fiscal year, the federal deficit is projected to increase by nearly $2 billion to $19.6 billion, up from the $17.8 billion projected for that year prior to today's fall economic update. Previously, the deficit in 2019-20 was to be less than the 2018-19 deficit of $18.1 billion, though that is no longer the case. The fall economic statement tabled Wednesday includes $17.6 billion in the new spending over 6 years. The majority of this new spending, just over $16.4 billion of it, is being spent in an attempt to mitigate the impacts of the U.S. corporate tax cuts that are making American businesses more competitive. This new approach includes 3 targeted incentives to Canadian companies that are meant to boost business confidence and spur competitiveness in the short term. By the way, that's really rich. The government talking about businesses competing when they're restricting it with regulations, taxes, and subsidies and all that kind of stuff, propping up major monopolies, which they then say, well, we need to stop these monopolies, so they bring in more government and create more monopoly. It's just so stupid. Anyway, it says, allow manufacturers and producers of goods to immediately write off the costs of machinery and equipment, forgive the compete cost of any clean energy equipment, and permit businesses of all sizes and sectors to write off a larger share of cost of new assets. Delivering his speech on the fall economic statement in the House of Commons, Morneau cited global uncertainty tied to ongoing trade disputes and spoke directly to the pressure to match U.S. President Donald Trump's tax cuts, which he described as aggressive. So there's a lot more to go into here, but first I just want to say that the Liberal government, any government in general, but the Liberal government is really extreme in this sense. And, deficit spending, massive amounts of debt, and you know what? Compared to the United States too, I mean, yeah, cutting taxes but raising spending, not exactly the most efficient thing ever. Taxation is theft, and this enforcement of spending people's money on crazy things that only make things more inefficient and destroy the free market competition, it's just absolutely insane and it's disgusting, and we need to be standing up against this status practice of organized crime, which people are becoming so dependent on, which is completely by design. And at the same time, Trudeau wants to do a $600 million bailout of media, which I also find funny. Before we go to John, I just want to mention that he just recently talked about, the freedom of the press in a recent speech and was attacking Donald Trump kind of loosely over this whole Jim Acosta thing, which I find real rich. When the Liberal government, when their press people came up to me at that press conference, the one where I called Trudeau a scumbag, and told me that I had 5 questions I could ask him, all scripted. Every other media went along with it. I said no, and I ended up getting pushed around by security when I decided to ask my own question to Trudeau about the carbon tax, which was a tax on everything and was raising spending, or raising the price of everything. It's just absolutely disgusting for this fascio commie leader, quote unquote, who can't tie his own shoes and likes to hug puppet unicorns, telling people about a free press when he can only answer scripted questions to the press, and now wants to do a bailout of these massive state-funded entities that propagandize the public. It is just absolutely hypocritical, ironic, and ridiculous, folks. People need to know about this practice. Anyway, John, with this whole deficit spending, all this insanity. What do you think about all of this?
Well, I think that's exactly what the government need to do in order to stay afloat. If they don't do this deficit spending, they won't have money to pay off their debt, Josh. Because I actually found the interesting correlation when I looked at a lot of the budgets of different governments. I found that the interest charge, like what they pay for in interest, because they never pay down the principal. All this government, there's almost no governments in the world paying down their debt that they accumulated, which nobody had really consented to in the first place. Nobody said that, oh yeah, I would love to get some more debt that I would owe in future taxes. Yeah,
but John, the social contract, when we were born as newborn babies, we somehow signed a contract to accepting all this insanity.
Go screw yourself, government people. Like, this is like it's getting to the point where it's getting very frustrating for people, because they're talking about those corporate tax credits, and incentives. They are first stealing it from you for them to give you back a little bit less than they stole from you. It's just such a fraud, Josh, where they just take all the money from you, and it's like, hey, here you go, here's some money for you. And then some people think that, oh yeah, great, the government is giving me some money. No, they stole it from you in the first place. It's insane. But I'm actually
imagine the apathy and complacency and the laziness that leads to that identity politic kind of belief that the government is giving you something when they stole more from you in the first place. It's so insane.
Well, that's what the government is there for, is extorting you and then giving you back a little bit of money, so you feel that you got something from the government. It's just insane, the whole thought pattern behind that whole belief in government. But I'm just looking at the 2018 numbers here for the Canadian government. They're talking about a fiscal deficit of what was it, Josh, there on that article? I don't have it up in front of me. What was the deficit again that they're talking about?
The deficit was, let me just look at my phone here. The deficit was $19.6 billion.
Okay, yeah, so you're looking at that. Now, the actual current deficit, they said that was an increase. Well, the current deficit, as of what it looks like right now, is currently at $25.983 billion. So that's way more than what they're telling you in the media. This is actually straight from fin.gc.ca, which is the government, where they actually are posting the budget, because everywhere else it's very hard to find it. It's just like a whole bunch of a collage of fun numbers and things that they talk about what benefits people. They don't even show the financial statement, which is the most important for any person in the world. But Josh, I'm looking at this, so I say in 25.983, but it says as an asterisk there, it says budget 2017 disclosed the budgetary deficit as $25.5 billion before deducting the adjustment for risk, $3 billion. So even if you deduct that, you will still have a $22.98 billion deficit in the fiscal year of 2017, not 2018, as I said. So this is pretty crazy, Josh, the numbers and the spending that the government does. But when you look at the actual public charge of the interest rate is 22.48 billion. So you're very close to. It almost seems like every government, their deficit is pretty close to their interest rate charge. I don't know if there's a correlation there, but I'll do some more research. But I looked at a couple of different budgets right now for governments, and it's like, hey, there's something fishy here. I was looking at the Australian government as well, and they had kind of similar numbers as well. So, Josh, are the actual government, is their deficit actually what they need to take in to pay off just the interest on all the debt that they own? Of course, the government currently owes $677 billion in debt. There's no way that they're ever going to pay that back. There are, the 22.42, they're just paying down the interest. And anybody that just pay the interest on their loan, if you were to go to a bank and do that, well, the bank would say like, hey, I love you. I'm going to rip you off forever, until you die, because you're never paying down your debt. But that's where we're going.
Their form of love includes a lot of penetration that people do not want.
No, exactly. No, it's just insane to watch this, Josh, what's happening. And then you have people saying that, oh yeah, Andrew Scheer is going to make things a lot better. Canada is bankrupt. Haven't you figured that out yet? there's all this talk about, different policies and things that the government needs to do for us. How about the government
It's so
just get out of the
crazy.
freaking way and go and get a life, go and do something real with your life other than pushing papers around and stealing and extorting people for money. There's so much other great things that you could do with your life. Trudeau, go and teach people how to ski up in the mountains again. You're way better than that than being
Or a substitute
being an
drama
extortion-
teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah, imagine believing that the problems of government are going to be solved by more government. It's just this perpetual religious cultish belief in statism, and it's so absurd, and it's so immoral, and it's so illogical on every single level. The destruction of free markets, the debt slavery that they've got people under in the chokehold. We've got the crazy fiat central banking system. We got this massive amount of deficit spending to pay off the interest on the debt, which shows that they have no concern with actually paying off the debt. And then we also see, household debt this year rising to about $1.8 trillion. This is so ridiculous, John. This is just like a never-ending, perpetual paradigm of statism and spending and debt servitude, which is exactly where the government wants to. The government is dependent on the dependence of the populace because it means that they're a complacent, enslaved populace, and people have to stop looking to different political quote-unquote leaders to save them from political quote-unquote leaders. I mean, of course, Trudeau is a puppet. He's not like making these decisions here, but he's like a really just bad henchman that they put forward in front of the camera, comb his hair, put some makeup on, make him play with some Play-Doh with some children, hug a unicorn, and then, blah, blah, blah off of his script that he cannot go off of without going and for 25 freaking minutes. It is so insane. John, let's kind of close this off because we've been going real long in our videos lately, and we got to kind of cut it down a bit. As you know, it's just, this gets just so much crazier. It continues to get crazier. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. It's just, the news is just going to keep on building up, and every single time you got to kind of wonder, like, what world am I living in? I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone. It's so insane, but people have to get prepared. People have to be self-sustainable. People have to be independent. Go outside of the collectivist paradigm, folks. Food, water, shelter, self-defense. You're not gathering things for the toughest guy on the block. Save your money. Outside the pension schemes and fraud, which are seeing huge shortfalls, by the way, and young people like myself and John will never see a pension. Folks, we have to look towards self-sustainability. We need to look towards, gold and silver as preserving our wealth and purchasing power. Not investment advice, just our opinion, but I mean, it's not meant to be investing anyway, gold and silver. It's wealth insurance. And then, decentralized cryptocurrencies that have sound fundamental value, not the 95% that are terrible, but the ones that will change the world forever. We're just at the beginning of that incredible monetary revolution. And of course, rule yourselves, decentralize everything. John, what's your bottom line?
Well, my bottom line is read my book. Sorry, no, it's sorry to try to promote myself a little bit, but in my book, Canada, the Greatest Economy in the World, I touched upon this, and I warned about what is currently happening, and I actually started writing that book when Stephen Harper was in place. So it's not that I just created this book just because of the Liberals. It's because of the government.
Political.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the big problem here. It's the government and the banks that are sucking out and siphoning out money. Through, you talked about the pension system, but what about the RSPs, the Registered Retirement Savings Plan scheme, like the 401ks in the United States that we have? That they entice you, the banks, the government entice you to get in, so they get a little bit of a tax deduction. Then the banks extort you for mass amounts of fees, and then the government gets on the accumulated wealth at the end. They get 30-40% in income tax. So it's just a huge scam that the government is working together with the banks, and that's what you need to exit out of. You need to become self-reliant on yourself. And actually, during a crash and collapse of the Canadian government, there is a lot of chances for Canada, because we're so flushed with resources and commodities that I don't think we're going to have such a huge problem if we get government out of the way. We have a lot of things that could take care of the population. So, but it's going to be a lot of hard times in between, and that's what we got to prepare for. Make sure that you insure yourself with gold and silver, that the Canadian government, we know that you're talking about. We confronted him on selling it, and he's saying like, yeah, I love Keynesianism. I want to marry and take bathing in in all this money that I'm printing. It's just insane, Josh. So we just got to
He
get
and
out
Paul
of the
Krugman have a good time in bed. You mentioned the government and banks sucking, money out of people and everything. And meanwhile, the apathetic, complacent populace is doing another kind of sucking. And it's a trap, folks. It's organized crime. Break free, rule yourselves, decentralize your lives, protect yourself, protect your family, be educated, be responsible, for responsibility is a hallmark of freedom itself. We cannot go on continuing to fall into this complacency of debt servitude. We are like sheep on a farm eating grass, saying everything's free because I got grass to eat, not looking at the cage surrounding us, and then we get led off to the slaughter with a smile on our face, like I've said so many times before.
And Josh, just one last thing before we go. What about the carbon tax that's coming in on top of all this? It's just insane. But that's what you have to do. You have to tax more in order to actually, extort more. So it's just the way it is, Josh. The government is just going to grow bigger. And people are saying like, oh, yeah, we're going to fix the government by putting in the PC party. It's not going to happen. The government is just going to continue to increase until it collapses in on itself. It's time to exit your dependency on the government and the banks and start winning in life, and exit.
Yeah.
Get out of the matrix.
You don't cure cancer with cancer, folks. Let's face it. And you don't cure cancer by cutting out 95% of it and allowing the last 5% to thrive. We must break free from this system, rule ourselves, and be free. We are free human beings intrinsically. The government cannot give us freedom. They can only take it away. Thanks for going into this with us, John. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth.
Be the change.
Like what you see here, OM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so vastly demonetized and censored on YouTube, as these guys come in and flag all of our content as hate speech. Also, check out our Bitcoin address below as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And also check us out at steemit.com. We're at Josh Sigurdson. It's a future of social media where you get paid in the upvote of your post in cryptocurrency. Steem, that is. So make sure to check us out there. Make sure to join us at Anarchapulco 2019 with people like Ron Paul, G. Edward Griffin, of course, Jeff Berwick, Vid Jedlicka. So many incredible speakers are going to be speaking. It's just a massively growing event. It is something you have to see to believe. So make sure to check it out below and save money on your tickets by using promo code WAM, that's WAM, and I hope to see you there. Also, check out our newsletter as we are getting demonetized and censored and all that. We don't know what comes next, so we have an email, worldalternativemedia@gmail.com. Send us an email with subject line YES, YES, and we will include you in the newsletter where we will continuously keep you updated. So until next time, thanks for watching, everyone. This is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.